call the meeting to order, and this is the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities. This is the January 17th meeting, which is now held on January 20th due to the snowstorm cancellation. All right, moving on. Could I have a mover for approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
I have Mr. Packwood moving and Councillor Hunter seconding. Thank you. And I'm going to call the question. Any concerns with the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. And moving on to number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do I hear any?
Done by me.
Hearing none. Thank you. Now, business arising from the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, if any. That's on page 1 to 8 in your package. Hearing none. I have one, and it's regarding no, I don't. That's okay. It's been looked after. No, it hasn't. I'm sorry. It's on page number 3 under Fire Department Policy. And I was just wondering, I know the chief's not here tonight, but I was just wondering, have we heard of any pushback regarding the retirement policy?
Through the chair, none to my knowledge at this point.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. And that's all I have. Hearing none from anyone else. Thank you. We will move on then to the delegations and presentations, which we have none tonight. And then we will go to number 6, which is the discussion item regarding the United Counties Affordable Housing Task Force report and action group draft response. And Mr. CAO, would you care to highlight this?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. If you recall, at January 10th meeting, there was some good discussion with respect to the housing affordability report. The committee had some concerns in particular with the mainly 2 items with respect to the Attainable Housing Action Group and the appointment of a Attainable Housing Coordinator. And certainly at this stage, so sort of the outcome of that meeting was to draft a response and bring it back to the Public Works meeting to ensure that we capture the essence of what the council would like to respond back to the county with. So
Okay.
the draft letter is attached for your discussion.
Correct. Thank you. Okay, you had a chance to read the draft copy and in your package. Comments, concerns, questions?
Well, Mr. Chair, if there's no other comments.
Go ahead.
So if there's no other comments, I just wanted to recognize and thank the CAO. I think he's drafted a great letter. It's very succinct and to the point, and I think accurately captures the discussion. I'm really happy that we have this on the agenda tonight. This actual item to appoint the action group and to execute on the Attainable Housing Coordinator position was on today's agenda at the committee meeting at the United Counties. Now we were extremely lucky. We got to 12:15. A number of mayors had indicated that their hard stop time was 12 o'clock, and the chair called the meeting to adjourn just as we finished the item in front of us. So hopefully we'll pick up on that item at the next meeting, but hopefully by that time Mr. Grant will have gotten this response from our council to the clerk, and it'll be part of the record.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from anyone? Okay, there's no recommendation with this. It's, that's an information item only. So we'll move on then to the next item, and that will be the application for severance, Broseville Road. And there is a recommendation with it. It's on page 11 to 22 in your package. Now, I see Wendy is here tonight with us. Wendy, would you like to highlight the package, please?
We have an application for severance. It's on Roseville Road, right near Roseville Road and County Road 44. It's 24 acres of land in the rural policy area. And the application proposes a new lot with about almost 9 acres and 70 meters of frontage. The retained lot would be about 15.5 acres and have just under 28 meters of frontage. Now 70 meters of frontage is the required frontage for in the rural zone, but an application for minor variance was granted by the Committee of Adjustments in December. The application is supported with planning rationale prepared by Zanza Plan. I would also note that in the application, it acknowledges some evaluated wetlands. These aren't provincially significant wetlands that we see in our official plan, but just wanted to note that there appears to be like a drainage swale from those wetlands that goes to Broseville Road. So we let the applicant know that at the building permit stage, they'll need to provide a grading and drainage plan, which is not unusual. And also we've had our director of operations visit the site with an engineer with South Nation, and the engineer provided some recommendation on where the best place for entranceway to that lot is. So we've incorporated those comments into the severance and asked that that be added to the decision, just so that we can keep track of them, make sure everyone is aware of that as well.
Thank you. Questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Wendy, the number 2 of the recommendation reads: an entranceway on the retained land should be located along the western property line. The access road should not be raised above the elevation of the neighbor's property to ensure that it doesn't direct water in that direction. Should the word should be maybe shall instead of should, or must? There should leave a little leeway to, I mean, yeah, thanks for the recommendation, but I'm going to put it on the east end where I'd like to.
Chair, this will be subject to an entranceway permit, so the director or public works manager or director of operations would still have the final say. I think this is more just us tracking these comments and making sure that the owner is aware. So it's going to be reviewed at the time an entranceway permit is submitted. I don't know when this lot is going to be developed and if anything will change between now and then. It certainly could say shall if the committee and council would like it to. I'm comfortable with should.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
When, like for me, adding more restrictions to development for this land as shoulds and may be considered, I like, unless it's an absolute requirement, I prefer that there wasn't really restrictions put on it at all until that was needed at the entranceway time for me. I think less, it seems like they've got to go through an awful lot, or they've already gone through an awful lot at this point to get to where to doing this. They've done a drainage plan and seen the planner and done all the stuff that putting these things in that say should just seems like unnecessary, I guess.
But Mr. Deputy Mayor, does the word shall not commit instead of should?
Well,
Should sort of leaves it open.
sure.
I'm going to go to Mayor Sale.
So through the chair, a number of questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
And I'm looking at page 20 of 46, which on my package, I have some color. I don't know whether the rest of you do or not.
Yes.
But when I look at my package, I've got a proposed severance in yellow, and it's got a 70-meter frontage on Browsville Road. It's 8.8 acres. And then I have a retained lands parcel on the west side of it, and it's got a 27.8 meter frontage on Browsville Road. So I have a question about that. But my most important question is the second part of the recommendation that we have in front of us. It says, an entranceway on the retained land, that's the blue one, should be located along the western property line. The western property line is actually touches County Road 44, well, barely touches County Road 44. But the western property line doesn't come anywhere near Browsville Road. As I read my map in front of me, it says, should the entranceway on the retained land should be located on the western property line. There's the deputy mayor's issue be after that. So I'm having trouble with the wording. If the intent is that the entranceway be on the 27-meter frontage Browsville Road, that's the actual eastern property line.
So through the chair, the 27.8 meters is actually the frontage of the property because it abuts onto Browsville Road.
Yeah, well, where's the entranceway?
So the entranceway would be where I would say close to the 2 on the 27.8 meters and the 44.6 meters.
Well, if you call that the western property line, I guess you could say that, but
Well, it is the beginning of that westerly property line, and we certainly understand that it does jag out and approach County Road 44.
yeah. Okay, so if that's the interpretation of where the western property line is, I guess I can't argue with that, but it just seems to me that that's a pretty, the main western property line is the long one, but anyway, all right, so we're gonna say that it's gonna front on Browsville Road, so the access point is gonna be on that 27.8 meters. Now, the next question that I find difficult to handle is the minimum standard for frontage on a township road is 70 meters. So they went to the minor variance committee and they got a minor variance from a 70-meter frontage to a 27-meter frontage. That's quite a minor variance. What is the standard width of an entranceway? Maybe the CAO or the director of operations can answer that question, but what is the width of a standard entranceway? Through the chair, if I may.
So the director of operations may want to correct me, but I do believe that the standard one is 6 meters.
6
feet.
Oh, okay, so at 27 meters, there's room for several. If an entranceway is only 6 meters, and this is 27 meters, there's lots of room. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I just don't see the interpretation that it's a minor variance, but I mean, I can't argue with the committee, I guess. We're being told that the committee approved that, so we have to accept that. I guess those are my concerns, Mr. Chair, now that the western property line issue has been clarified. I'll go back now and talk about the should. I think should is nebulous. It's prescriptive to a certain degree, but it's not totally prescriptive. And shall is definitely prescriptive, and may is definitely permissive, and should is sort of halfway in between may and shall. And I personally would like to see something a little bit more definite, more prescriptive, because the concept of that of that whole recommendation is that we don't want a newcomer to this piece of property infringing on the neighbor's property in such a way as to direct water onto the neighbor's property. So I really do support a more prescriptive word than should, and I think it should be shall. And then that ends that issue. Otherwise, we have the neighbor coming back to us saying, well, you know, he did it this way and now I got water draining onto my land, and then we're the bad guys.
So what you're, both deputy mayor and mayor are saying that the second line in number 2 should actually read the access road shall not be raised? Is that
Yes.
Is that what I understand?
That's,
Deputy mayor, is that your concern as well?
I just want to ask a couple more questions before
Certainly, go ahead.
going to that, if possible. Through the chair back to Wendy, or maybe the CAO, because I, if there was an attachment that was the minor variance, I didn't read it. Were there issues for drainage? Like, or were there reasons for the recommendation to be written that way? Because reading through Xander plan, under section 3, it talks about the PDS, but it says that there are no natural hazards such as floodplains or hazard plants, no human-made hazards or mine hazards or oil or gas hazards, and no natural or human-made hazards within the proximity to the site. So if there aren't any water hazards or water issues, that's the way I read 3.0, and I drove out and had a look at it. If there aren't, then why are we putting a restriction on in the first place?
Through the chair, our director of operations flagged that there had been some flooding or drainage concerns in that area. It was after the planning rationale had been written, so that's why it's not incorporated into there. But also why he took the time to go out and visit the site a few times, I believe, and once with the engineer at Station, so that he could be confident that we would address it or just not have those concerns before we separate or the reduce sort of run.
So my last comment, more than a question, is again trying to reduce restrictions so that people can develop. But there's no need for that restriction to be there under the planning guide and the report that's presented or through it. I would say I prefer to see it go through without the restrictions on it. That's my comment.
Councilor Dillabaugh, did you want in?
Well, yeah, I think the drainage, we're going north, aren't we, on that? We're not going west, right? We're going across the road on Red Road when they build that drainage. Won't that drainage be going north and not west?
Yes, there's some evaluated wetlands to the west and south of the property, and there's a swale that goes north to Grossville Road. I believe there's across from Culvert there.
Yeah, and that's where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not even affecting anything on the west side. Or
No, the engineer's comments were just probably obvious, but just that the entranceway should be higher than the neighbor's property. So
Yeah.
that it's
okay, and both neighbors are brothers.
For now.
Anyways, I think they did well. They spent a lot of money and time with you, Wendy, I do believe, coming, asking questions, and they hired in their plan. So, and I know where the drainage is going is north. It's not going to be an issue. So I have their blessings. I hope they get up and build.
Councilor Hunter?
I see that they did a lot of engineering work on coming over here to try to get this through, and it appears that we got it through minor variance. Former Edgersburg Council, we had a lot of discussions over this, and this is one of the reasons why it was back when I was on council before. We used to have a minimum 100-foot frontage on lots that they could have in the area as long as they had the thing. We raised it from 100, we went to 220 feet on it, and we went to the 20 feet over the 200, basically to stop on farms that they couldn't create 3 driveways close together across the 40 rod
Oh, 40 rods.
farm. And now we're getting down, we're starting to give these minor variances to cut these frontages a way down, and we're gonna end up in the same situation we have back on the road back here that Bob Carpenter built on Buckwheat Road there at the upper end, where they got narrow lots of 100 feet, and they've constantly been getting complaints over the drainage and stuff across, and the snow block plowing up, blocking the driveways and stuff, because there's no place to put the snow, they're so close in between. Like, I have a real problem with these mine getting down to a 27-meter frontage on a lot coming in. I don't think we should be giving these minor variances to cut this way down. I don't think that's minor. I think the mayor, if it's 3 meters or 4 meters, or maybe even 10 meters, that's a minor variance. But when you get less than half what the requirements are, that's hardly a minor variance. So.
But according to this, it never was over 100 feet. It was only 97.8 meters. 100 meters rather. Well, Mr. Mayor, you want it in?
Well, Mr. Packwood is ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Packwood.
I'd like to just play the devil's advocate for a minute. Councilor Underwood brought up a very good point about these frontages. Now, is this going to set an example for a developer who's got a chunk of property someplace and he's got 100-foot access or less, and then he maybe got 4 or 5 acres behind that he can build houses? Could this be held as a legal precedent?
Well, Mr. Chairman, something has changed in between, and of course, now we have a restriction that there can only be one severance off an existing lot of record, as I understand. So you can create 2 new lots. You used to be able to create 3 off an existing lot of record. But that is, as I understand it, we've changed that. So you can't get nowadays 3 or 4 or 5 severances off a 40 rod field. You can only get 2, so 20 rods each. So I think something has changed. It's a different way of setting a standard. But I have another question, and that is, this creates 2 building lots, does it not? Through the chair to Wendy?
Through the chair, there's 1 building lot existing, so 1 severance creates 1 additional, so it creates 1 additional building lot.
1 additional, yeah, but there's no houses on either one. So what we say is that a grading and drainage plan will be required at the building permit stage to mitigate potential drainage. So does that condition apply to both lots?
Through the chair, just to clarify, the conditions on the severance, these are just notes based on the decision, so it's not meant to be restrictive. It's meant more of a, I guess, informative.
Ooh, well, hang on 1 second. These are recommendations. It says if the committee recommends that council recommend in favor of the severance application and request that the following notes are included in the severance decision. So these notes or these requirements, if you like, I think we're downplaying their strength, because when I talk to the county planner, we can actually insert these as requirements in the severance. We haven't done that at this particular recommendation. I think we should require that these conditions be met in both lots. I mean, that's just good planning. A grading and drainage plan on each of the lots, and then the entranceway on the On the western lot, that's a different thing, but I still think the word should be prescriptive, shall be raised, shall not be raised above the elevation of the neighbor's property. So there's a number of issues here, but I'm under the impression that we recommend to the county the conditions of the severance. These are two of the conditions of the severance, not just notes. And there's a big distinction there.
Wendy, is there there can also be a driveway put in off Highway 44 too, couldn't there?
Not really, doesn't
Chair,
touch
no,
for
there's no frontage on County Road 44.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep, you're absolutely correct. You're correct. Okay,
So if I may through the chair, it's my understanding that committee is interested in putting a condition that within a year that they have to build.
No, I
didn't hear that.
I didn't hear that.
It's my understanding that conditions must be met within a year.
Yes,
If it's placed as a condition. If
yes,
it's
through
placed
the
as a
chair.
note.
Yeah, which is why we didn't ask for this to be as a condition, because then they would only have 1 year to fill those conditions. And if they don't want to build within a year, and I don't know that they plan to build right away, then the severance would lapse, they have to start over. However, adding it as a note is just making everyone aware when our building official, before he grants the building permit, like with their application, he'll know to ask for a grading and drainage plan, and he likely would have done that anyways without this note on the severance. And our director of operations or public works manager would also know that we've got a recommendation here to look at before an entranceway permit is granted. But we can look at that when we have that permit. This is just a note here to make sure everyone is aware.
well,
Not my understanding of the situation, Mr. Chair.
yeah, I just have another question, because if it's only good for a year,
What's only good for a year?
well, just a minute, that's what I'm getting at. Can he not renew?
No, through the chair. So when a severance is conditionally granted, the applicant has 1 year to
Yes.
meet the conditions of that severance.
Correct,
If the conditions aren't met, then the severance would lapse.
and then okay, so he can't get an
He
extension.
has to do it all over again.
Correct.
Don't hold a gun to his head,
Well,
please.
for what we've been through, coming back to bite us with David Street, with, I think, is it East Street or Middle Street in Cardinal, with the subdivision, with the Sawmill Creek subdivision, with the schmozzle that happened there. We've got to be factual about this. We've got to be pretty clear. Okay, we need, go ahead,
I
Councilor.
don't think we need to make it as a condition, as when you, and Dave spoke to it, to make it a condition that they have to meet within a year. I don't think that's right, but I do think that we should change the word to shall. And make specific that when the recommendation will require.
When they get their building permit, they have to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with
No.
that. But it's fait accompli here now. My only problem that I bring up is I think we gotta do up these minor variances. I don't think when we're going for something with minor variances, less than half of what they do with minor variant, that's not a minor variance. And if the mayor says yes, it's changed that you can get the 2 severances. But we've got an awful lot of properties that fall within in that area that have already been severed 1 or 2 times, but they were severed before the deadline when it becomes a property, that now they can be severed again. And it happens all the time. Like I know for a fact, because I sold a couple of pieces of properties 20 years ago, and they were both split again. 5 years ago, they were applied for severances and split again, so not a thing that's guaranteed. You keep giving me minor variances, so.
Stay quiet. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I struggle with things like the housing affordability task force where we're allowing secondary dwellings on city lots, and we're putting in granny suites on houses, and we're arguing over severing how many acres here into 2 lots. Like, to me, like
In a rural area.
like it's craziness, in my opinion, that we're sitting here talking about an 8-acre building lot and putting restrictions on it, not developing it, but yet we're gonna allow people to put tiny homes in their backyards. Like, it seems like over governance or something. Like, let the guy build a lot, or let him create a lot and build a house. I mean,
2 houses.
every 2 houses takes away the ridiculousness of this other act. It's so restrictive, it's crazy.
Okay, the chair wants to know
Sorry.
how this recommendation should read, please. Am I correct again? We'll do this again with the second number, recommendation number 2. The access road shall
No.
not be raised. Is that word should become shall? Is that what I'm understanding?
And if it stays, I think that it needs to be different than what it is.
No, but that is the correct shall,
Yeah, I believe.
or should, I should say. That is the correct should that should become shall.
The retained land shall be located along the western property line. The second one I think is debatable, but the first one I don't think is.
Okay, well, okay, that's what I'm trying to. Where is the second shall?
The access road should not.
The access road should not be raised above the elevation. So is that I
would think that it should be shall not too, but
okay,
Mr. Chair, maybe just for consistency, I would change the shoulds, which would be 2 in that second.
I see that, yes.
recommendation, to shall.
any other changes?
Okay,
Mr.
so
Mayor?
we've agreed that we're changing those 2 words before the recommendation comes forward, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now you're looking for somebody to bring the recommendation forward.
Yes, actually I am.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
I have a mover with the mayor, and I have a seconder with Councillor Dillabaugh. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. The shells shall prevail.
Get 2 buildings on it. Good.
yeah, 2 buildings. I agree.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on now to 7B, which is our annual water report. CWS and EDS, and it's on, there is a recommendation with this, and it's on page 23 to 34. And who is going to highlight this report? Do I see Mr. Shaw? Or
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe Mr. Shaw is on virtual.
yes, Mr. Shaw, could you just highlight the report for us, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So annually, under Regulation 17003, the ministry requires owners of municipal drinking water systems to report out on an annual report and provide it to the public at no charge. The 2 annual reports, one for the Cardinal Water System and the Edwardsburg Water System, are before you tonight. The recommendation is that committee recommends that council receive the 2021 annual water reports for the Cardinal Water System and the Edwardsburg Water System, and direct staff to post the annual water reports to the township website, and direct staff to notify users via social media and newspaper of report availability.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Okay, you've had the chance to read your package and go over the report. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, it is a good report. The, again, they're functioning well. Could I have a mover for the recommendation, please? I have moving by Councillor Hunter, second. Councillor Dillabaugh, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Now we move on to the 2022 Industrial Park wastewater budget. And it's on, there is a recommendation with this. It's on pages 35 to 38. And the recommendation is that committee recommends that council, one, increase the consumption rate by 40 cents per cubic meter, and two, direct staff to prepare a bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget estimates and impose rates for the users of the industrial park wastewater system. All right, any concerns or questions?
Mr. Chair, did you want the treasurer to just sort of highlight anything before?
That would be, thank you, Mr. CAO. Yes, Madam Treasurer, if you would highlight the report, please.
Certainly. The biggest part of this particular budget is our share, the township's share in the Prescott wastewater treatment plant. The budget was based on a flow rate for 21. So we've been provided in the package. You'll see the town of Prescott had a joint board meeting and had provided us with a draft 22 budget. So I've just included their value, but I have decreased it because we have a more current flow rate of 7.42%. So that's the biggest, that's the largest share of that budget. So in order to offset that flow rate cost, that's where we're anticipating increasing the consumption rate, because flow rate obviously indicates there's more flow, more consumption. So we've increased that. It will actually put a little bit more into our reserves because we have a fair amount of consumption occurring. But basically, we'll be putting the majority of the money that we get for the Prescott for the in lieu of taxation would get put into reserves, and our reserve fund will then grow a little bit more. I do anticipate, hopefully, to still put money in for 2021. Don't know the final number for 21 as of yet because the numbers that were provided at the joint board were not complete. I think they were up till about October or November. They didn't have final numbers for the year. I'm hoping to know those numbers by March.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I'll open the floor now to questions and concerns. Mr. Mayor?
I just, maybe the treasurer can help me out, Mr. Chair. Who holds the reserve fund? Do we hold it, or is the Prescott hold the reserve fund?
We have our own reserve fund.
So any excess over what we collect here remains under our control?
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns for Madam Treasurer? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Okay, that brings us to the recommendation.
I'll move the recommendation.
I have a mover with Mayor Sayo, and a seconder with Mr. Packwood. Thank you so much. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. That brings us to an information item. This is 7D, and this is the commuter pilot project for the River Run update flag stops. And Mr. CAO, I know you're on the committee. Would you care to highlight your report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Operations Committee met and finalized a few refinements to the route based on feedback from committee discussions. So some of the adjustments to the route are departing Brockville along the second concession versus County Road 2 to Maitland, and shifting a stop on Sarah Street in Maitland to the Merck Home, and the addition of another stop at Cedar Street in Maitland. And we'll be shifting the James Street stop at Ingredon to John Street across from the church. We had received some concerns from Ingredon lately with respect to the truck traffic and the bus stop being in close proximity. So we've adjusted to John Street. So there was discussion with respect to the flag down the bus system. And the committee has agreed to test out the flag down system in the lower speed areas. So the built up areas of Maitland, Prescott, Johnstown, and Cardinal. In addition, looking at closing some of that gap between Johnstown and Cardinal with additional stops at Grenville Park, Johnstown Motel, Blair Road, and ELC Automotive. And basically the bus would only stop if there was a rider waiting at these locations. So it's not what I would call the same kind of confirmed stop as those other locations. So with respect to that, the committee shall have a report on the updated financials, ridership, and survey results in February.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Questions or concerns? Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Duly Chair. Duly Chair to the CEO. When we're saying we're going to stop at Grenville Park, Johnstown Motel, and Blair Road, I can understand that going eastbound, but are they going to be doing that westbound, driving across the road, or are they going to stay at the westbound lane in front of these places?
So
If there's people there.
if there's people there, it would likely be picked up on the eastbound route, not necessarily the westbound route.
But what happens if people are waiting to go west to Brockville?
So in those particular locations, such as we'll use the Johnstown Motel as an example, they will probably pull in, pick up around that loop, and then continue out.
And then head west.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's all I was worried about. Thank you.
Councillor Hunter.
You're the chair. When's this pilot project, when's it supposed to end? What's the end date?
I want to say that it would be early March would be the 6-month period.
Have a financial report before that?
Yeah, yes. We're hoping to have that in early February.
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. To the CAO, do we know offhand, I'm racking my brain trying to think of where the 50 zones are between like say Cardinal and Johnstown, or even Cardinal and Prescott. Are there 50 zones there?
So they're not. So it's just in those built up areas within that route. So within the village of Cardinal, where the bus route currently goes, same as Johnstown, those locations.
So ultimately, unless you're in Johnstown or Cardinal, you're not flagging a bus. Nowhere in between. New Wexford or
not along County Road.
So
Go ahead, Councillor.
A comment, when we're talking about low speed, maybe I don't know, for a mayor or through the CEO, there was something posted the other day about the counties that lowered the speed limit to 60 all the way from Maitland to Cardinal, so it's pretty well all low speed area now, isn't it?
Maitland to Cardinal.
has to be 50.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite accurate, but
Now, where is it from then?
I have the picture in my mind, but I can't pull it out. But we put a number of, if I may, Mr. Chair. We lowered a bunch of 80s to 60 west of Maitland and east of Maitland, but now we're not using County Road 2. We're gonna go on the second concession. And the second concessions is, as near as I know, it's all 80.
No,
How much 50?
60.
Second concession?
Coming down from Brockville until we get to Maitland.
Yeah, it's all 60.
Yeah.
All 60 through there.
60, I thought it was 50.
It's not.
No, it's 60. Now, just one moment. That particular road coming out of Brockville, the second concession, that is the one that runs parallel to 401, directly north of 401. Is that the one?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. That is 60 from Brockville to Maitland. And then after Maitland, it picks up to 80. And then it drops to 60 for a while, and then goes back to 80.
So a heavy residential route
Yes.
with very little traffic, 60-kilometer zone, but we won't take flag downs.
It is a heavily traveled road.
No, no heavy trucks.
Well, no heavy trucks, no, there isn't.
School buses, man.
But it's a heavy, it's a heavily traveled road.
I have a number of questions, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
Well, I mean, first of all, I know I'm gonna sound bad here because, and I don't mean my comments to reflect on the CAO, because I recognize he's only one member of this committee. But decisions like this tells me that the committee really doesn't want the system to work, because they're not interested in the extra ridership that they might create by flag downs. They've basically done everything they can to discourage it. I mean, where the speed limits were 80, some of them have been lowered to 60, but even the 60 zones we don't pick up. It has to be 50 kilometers or less in order for a flag down. And then moving stops to a place like Grenville Park. Who is going to walk to Grenville Park? It makes no sense. Nobody's going to walk from Johnstown to Grenville Park to pick up a bus. I mean, there's no residential there. A little bit of residential on the north side, east of Grenville Park, but I don't understand the thinking of the committee that would come up with that kind of a scene. The bus is going to come down the second concession to Maitland, and then it's going to go to the Merck Hall. Who would walk to the Merck Hall to get on or off a bus? The Merck Hall isn't open maybe 0.002% of the time. And it's well isolated in the village of Maitland. So the bus is making all that extra mileage. Maybe it stops at the Merck Hall now, I don't know. I mean, I just don't, well, it says it stops at Sarah Street right now. I mean, I don't know where Sarah Street is, but the Merck Hall I sure as heck do. I mean, I just don't understand the thinking of the committee. And if Mr. Grant can help me out here, I'd sure appreciate it, because I mean, I'll tell you one thing right now, if you want to increase ridership on this route, you got to make it easier for people to access this bus, not harder.
So through the chair. Certainly there are a number of locations along County Road 2 where it is not certainly safe to stop and do pickups. I think we can all agree on those particular areas.
I don't agree with that.
Well, and I've certainly heard the comments several times with respect to when buses do it. Well, if you call buses are signalized. This bus is not signalized. You know, in certain cases, we're looking at this to be more like a taxi than an actual bus route.
But the bus is four-way flashers.
Four-way flashers are certainly not the same as the flashing red lights on a bus.
No.
That are visible.
They're not, it's not a school bus, it's not a yellow bus, I understand. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I don't want to, I apologize here. I'm getting out of line. I don't want to be argumentative with the CAO, but I I think we should be accurate here, the bus has at least four-way flashers.
And you know what people do to four-way flashers? They speed up.
It has a highness like at the top.
Ridership is what we should be focused on here.
Any other comments?
Well, I know we want to try to focus on ridership here too, but you still gotta look at the expense of it too. I don't think there's any way this bus and that's all the township are going to pour a ton of money into it to keep it running as can support itself. By stopping along highway, if we do flag downs, you can guarantee that your insurance rate is going to take one hell of a jump. No insurance company's going to not raise the rate if you're just periodically stopping at non-stop marked stops. They're going to hit you for more insurance. So yes, it's a good idea if everybody jumped on and did it 100%. Buses don't support themselves. Brockville loses hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on buses right in the city trying to get ridership on, let alone their ear. And for a township,
Hockey arenas don't either.
I know, the hockey arena is open. All over the township, people go to use the hockey arena. People, as soon as you get back to the second concession, nobody's going to ride on that bus. You got 9/10 of the township has no availability for that bus route.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
if Councillor Hunter is finished, I want to just pick up on the point that he's making. We know that we had $55,000 cash to operate with. In the last report that we had expended through $27,000, and that was after 60 days, I think. And if I recall correct, it was from the beginning of the program till the end of October that we got that report. And we had burned through 27,000. So 27 off the 55 that we had to operate with, what's that leave me? That leaves me 28,000. I mean, my question is, we're not going to hear another report on this until early February. So we've gone all of January, all of December, all of November. Who's going to pick up the deficit on the $55,000? Because we're going to be over the 55,000 by the time we roll into February. At that rate of burn.
I have a question for Mr. Grant. The choice to use the second concession instead of County Road 2, was there reasons given by the committee as to why they were taking it off number 2?
So through the chair, there did not appear to be any hiccups along that section. So we're looking to go the second concession with the potential to consider maybe looking at a stop in around that Sharps Lane end of it. But yeah, the idea and the concept was to get second concession because it leaves the superstore area. So just head straight out there and then work your way back into Maitland.
I see. Because I really, having traveled the second concession many times, there's not a lot of places to stop to pick people up along that road, especially if you're going east. Anyway, I think because this is an information item, I think the things that you're hearing tonight, I'm sure you'll mention these to the committee in your next meeting. Okay, Any, we'll go around one more time. Any other concerns or questions for David?
Through the chair, if I
Go
may,
ahead, yes.
the question of the financing, was there any discussion at that committee meeting about the financing and where the deficit is going to be picked up, or how the deficit is going to be picked up?
So through the chair, I do not have an updated financial as of right now.
What was there discussion at the meeting?
So since the start of the project, I indicated that our level of investment was 10,000. The remainder of the committee is aware that we will only be putting forward the 10,000.
Yes.
So the second part of the question is, we've had several reports about the marketing that's going to be done. I haven't seen any marketing materials. Now, maybe I'm missing them, but have there been any marketing materials prepared?
Through the chair, yes, there has been marketing materials prepared.
This is the new marketing materials that, other than what we saw originally.
There have been some additional marketing materials produced since then. I'm not sure if they're out in full distribution yet or not.
I have another question for you, Mr. CIO, and that is, again, because you're the liaison on the committee here. The committee is made up of how many people?
For the chair, there would be
Approximately.
there would be 5 on the operation committee.
Okay, are any of them municipal councillors or elected officials?
For the chair, no.
Okay. Mr. Bilbao?
Yes, duly chair, there is advertising on 1027 on the radio.
Is there?
Yes, I heard it today, actually, that local radio, take the bus and so on and so forth. That's marketing that I never heard before.
And that is targeted at the residential people.
So, yeah, I know, it's only river route, that's all, to, you know, where to catch it. Take it for 5 miles. So, there is marketing out there. I don't know about.
Okay, hearing no other questions, I'm going to move on.
So through the chair, if I may.
You can.
So I get that that committee was hoping for the FICA bus down through the entire route. That wasn't something that was going to occur at the committee level at this time. So with respect to those stops between Cardinal and Jonesdale, they were items that I raised to try to somehow find some additional locations that may be able to pick some people up as sort of a hybrid model. I get that what the desire is from committee and council. I'm not sure what else that I can say. I know when this started, it was spend only the time that only spare time that you have on this, not to make this a priority. I'm doing my best to put the effort forth to try and make this a success. But it all depends on what we want to determine as a success. Like in the end, I don't mind saying that within 6 months, we're not going to have a full picture of whether this is something that can extend for years. I just don't think I just don't think with the environment that we're in right now and everything like that. that, we still have, ways to go to ensure that we've done all we can with respect to marketing and give it a time to, so that it's well, I guess, so that it's well known in the community. But I think no doubt that although the ridership isn't where we would probably like it to be, I think the last one that I reported was about 12 a day. There is, reasonable use within the township. So we are at least reaching a few people that probably require this public transportation.
Mr. CAO, just regarding your comments, I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not 100% sold on the idea of flag downs, especially on Highway number 2. It's a very dangerous practice. There's not a lot of places for a bus to pull over. A bus does not have the lighting that a school bus has. People are accustomed to stopping for a school bus when they see red lights flashing, not necessarily caution lights flashing. And I say this from experience. I was involved in a very serious situation where a child was killed getting off a school bus after school hours coming from a game, and a school bus at that time was not, after a certain time, was not required to have the red lights flashing. The child ran across number 2 and was hit and killed by a car. So I just want to make it very clear that I'm not 100% sold on the idea of flag downs. And I can only see so far the township supporting a business that is not making money. We have enough businesses that are struggling in Edwardsburg Cardinal, and we're not giving handouts to them. So I just want to make that clear to the CAO. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns? Because I think Mr. Grant has enough ammunition to.
Well, I get that, but I don't think the River Route bus service is a business. It's a municipal service. So, well, again, it seems to be an argumentative. I'm trying my best not to say anything, but I don't see it as a business. I see it as a service that we offer to the residents that use it and that need it. So I understand that there is a budget component to it. I understand that it needs to be responsible tax dollars spending, and it needs to prove itself for long-term work. But I don't see it as a business. I see it as a service. Part of the model.
That's your opinion, Deputy Mayor. Okay, let's move on. That brings us to 7E, which is the vaccination policy revision. It's in your package on page 40 to 46, and there is a recommendation for it. And the recommendation reads that committee recommend that council adopt the revised COVID-19 vaccination policy as presented. Could I get a mover for the recommendation, please? Mr. Packwood, could I get a seconder? Councillor Hunter, thank you. Concerns and questions? We've had a chance to go over the package. Hearing none. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Aye. And we're carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to council inquiries and notices of motion. Do we have any tonight? Mr. Dillbaum.
Thank you, dearly chair. I'd just like to know the status to the CAO of our traffic sign on Safari Street. Yes, no, I haven't been off.
Through the chair, that would be still not up.
Sorry?
Still not up.
Okay. Any idea when?
I will do some follow-up in that regard.
I know it's busy being the
Since
snow.
we, since we last had that discussion, the focus has been on
Yeah,
wear control activities. But
understand.
it is one of those
Thank you.
items that I still do need to follow up on.
Thank you.
Councillor Hunter?
Just one inquiry, I guess, through the chair to council members and our CEO, having had a South Nation meeting today, and it was brought up by Angela there that she's been in contact with Rebecca, I believe, about South Nation doing a presentation to the council. She's looking for a date when they can be here to present their budget and their plan for the new realignment, I guess that's not the right word for us provinces. Transition plan there that we're putting together that lists all the functions that the town, that the South Nation must provide, and the functions that they are providing that's above and beyond what it is, and getting township councils feedback on their plan, and whether they think there's too much in there or whether there's not enough in there. Most of what South Nation does fit right within what the province was requiring, but they do extra. Most of it is done, funded through grants and things and our donations, not that much through the levy itself, but there is a bit in there, so they're anxious to come and make a presentation. They have to put the first transition draft has to go in, I believe, end of February. They have to put the first plan through the provincial government on. I think they did give, I think the administration has had a copy of it and sent to you, looking for any feedback from administration. Not to put anything on our administration, because we have 16 different partners, and so far nobody has responded. So the plans going forward right now, the proposal was going forward basically just with the feedback of the directors and administration on what they have so far, but it doesn't come into finalization until near mid-year. So there's still time to meet with them and let them present, and if any of us have any concerns of what's not being added in, or concerns of what's being added in give our budget as well. Right now, our budget presentation was before we know what our levy already is, 1.6% or something this year. Basically, just what we had to pay levy to the provincial conservation authorities, and all the conservation authorities pay into. It went up 1.7% this year. The conservation authority had to pay the province, which amounts to about $36,000 that they pay over to them. So all the conservation authorities pay into it. The only ones that doesn't increase every year is the Toronto Conservation, and they froze theirs at $100,000. It's been froze for the last 4 years. They deemed they shouldn't have an increase because they provide other services, floodplain mapping and one thing another that they contribute to. It's been a contentious issue with all the directors of South Nation and Rio Valley and Cataract Valley that they shouldn't have an increase regardless, because we all provide other services too that is fed out to all the conservation authorities, and our still goes up every year. So but they'd like to try to arrange sometime fairly soon if we could get a date for them to meet with us. I understand that we're all busy in budgets and everything else, but they got to get a date. If we want to talk to them, we got to get a date for it in the next month and a half or so for them to come and see us.
So how are you going to request that, Counselor? Are you going to request staff to bring it forward at a meeting, or I see CAO Grant is wanting to get in here?
Through the chair, yes, I do know that it was possibly yesterday that the clerk was speaking to the general manager, Angela Coleman, with respect to that. And I think we're going to try to aim for February 17th as one of the budget meetings to have them come in and make that presentation. That's what we're tentatively looking at.
What was the date?
I believe it's February 17th. Is that our? Well, it would be the start of the meeting, which is the delegation presentations.
Now, will that be virtual or will it be in person?
And it was what will come in person, so.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, I think something
so I
like
will,
that should be.
maybe if you would indulge me, Mr. Chair, I'll just maybe ask the clerk maybe to come on screen and give you a little update.
Certainly.
Hi, through the chair. Yes, during my conversations with Angela Coleman yesterday, she has indicated that the date that works best for SNC to attend would be the February 17th budget meeting. I don't see that there being any objections around the table for that date at this point in time, I'm assuming. No? Okay. And yes, she will be willing to attend in person as well, unless, of course, provincial restrictions dictate otherwise. Right now, the restrictions look like they're going to be easing in the next coming weeks. She cannot attend before the the February 14th meeting, which is the Monday meeting, because she's still trying to get a couple of things finalized with their presentations before she comes to us.
And Madam Clerk, could you give us a time that they would be here?
Our meeting begins on the 17th at 6 p.m. and she'd be the first item up on the agenda.
So it'll be 6 p.m.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, so we can set our calendars for the 17th, which is our meeting anyway, and we will have South Nation here. Terrific, thank you. Okay, any other notices? Hearing none, I'm going to move on, and Mr. Mayor, it is time for your report.
I have a couple of things. So first of all, I just wanted to talk just for a minute about the food cycle sciences project that we've embarked on. And the CAO reported at the last meeting that we had signed the agreement. And so I just spent a minute just reviewing it with him to get the project clear in my head. And so just so that council understands, although we hope that our net cost for 100 units will be 10,000, I think it's important that council realize that when we place the order, if we place an order for 100 units, our cost will be $30,510. So in other words, the Food Cycle Science Corporation, they will want the full cost, $30,510 up front at the time that the order is placed. And then as we sell them, we recoup $150 per unit. So that's the way the system will work. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is that in response to one of the people that had shown interest in the program, and the CAO reported this at the last meeting, it looks as though March, April is the time frame. The thing that bothers me about the time frame, and I've expressed this to the CAO, is that, you know, I've written twice about it now to the large group that I correspond with. I've got 10 people lined up for these units, but I'm just worried that, you know, between now and the time that we get to March, April, those people lose interest, and that's what tends to happen in these kind of things. So I just point that out. The second item on my report here the Roma conference will start this Sunday on January the 23rd, and it continues on the 24th and the 25th. The United Counties has 3 delegations organized, 4 delegations organized to meet with ministers, 3 of them on the 24th and 1 of them on the 25th. When I get to the next council meeting, which will be on the 24th, I'll give the titles of the ministers that we've met with and the issues that we've brought up. And by then I'll have the briefing notes from each of the presentations. I'll be able to table the briefing notes so you can see the issues that were raised. As far as the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal is concerned, we didn't request any delegations, and so consequently we have none booked. Now moving to the next item on my agenda, I had indicated some time ago that I had hoped that the St. Lawrence Quarter Economic Development Commission, which was hoping to have an announcement in December, that got postponed to January. And now we're at the point where it appears that all the parties are coalesced around an announcement, but the formality of a meeting and a ribbon cutting and a big ceremony is going to have to be set by the wayside because of the COVID restrictions, which we had hoped would be off by now. So consequently, all I can say to council at this point in time is that you should pay very closely to something that I hope I will be able to share with you tomorrow or the next day about an announcement that will be made on Monday, January the 24th at 1 o'clock. And my awkwardness there is that, and I don't know how this happened, the St. Lawrence Quarter Economic Development Commission and the proponent that you'll be hearing from have sort of set 1 o'clock for the time frame to issue a major press release. 1 o'clock happens to be the exact same time that all mayors of the county are meeting in a delegation with one of the ministers. So it's going to be a very awkward situation. We haven't yet determined how it's going to work out. But it's very awkward. Do you meet with the minister as part of a delegation that you've been asked for, or do you show up at this Zoom meeting for this major press announcement, which is going to be really a game changer for Eastern Ontario? So that's the dilemma that we're in, and I'll leave it. Now I'll end my report on that note.
Mr. Dilwell.
Duly chair to the mayor, can we bump that up or from April to February to the CEO on our
So through the,
is it
through the
possible?
chair, if I may, the reason that we're looking at early April is number one, that we have the opportunity. We just had the sort of the kickoff meeting earlier today with food cycle science, and we will get the marketing material out. We'll build that list. We'll ensure that that individuals have made those payments so that when the units arrive, we can get those distributed and we're not storing an abundance of units. Right now, it's a little difficult time with a bulk of our major activities happening with respect to winter control. We're just finishing year end. We're in the middle of budget. We're dealing with some staffing shortages each week. I would really like to give it a little extra time and get that marketing out. I expect that there will be reasonably good interest. We just want to make sure that the program is set up to run as smooth as possible, so that we're not having to find a location store an abundance of units, and make it as efficient of a distribution as possible. So I anticipate that in the next few weeks that material will be issued, and we will be gathering our list.
Very good. And thank you, because Earth Day is April 22nd this year. So,
There, and through the chair, there just may have been an alignment.
The stars have aligned
did anybody know that?
and the moon reaches the
Thank you.
southern hemisphere. Okay, any other questions or any other from the mayor? No? We'll now move to question period. I see we have no questions on the screen, and we have no one in the gallery. So that brings us to the closed session period. We do have a closed session tonight, and I believe Councillor Hunter, you have the motion to go into closed session.
I do move myself and Deputy Mayor Deschamps, committee proceed into closed session at 7:51 in order to address a matter pertaining to section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identified individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically public works, and minutes of closed session dated August 16th, 2021 and November 15th, 2021.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried. Thank you. And we will have
Myself, second. Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the closed meeting, the committee does now adjourn and the open meeting does now resume at 8:52 p.m.
all in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And I'll be right with you folks. Okay, so now do I report, right?
Yeah.
I report and I don't need a mover. Do I need a mover to report? No, I don't. Okay, we came out of closed session. We had a brief discussion regarding the minutes of August 16th and November 15th meeting.
Councillor Dillabaugh brought forward a motion.
He did. All in favor?
But he didn't give us a read.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Should read that motion.
I will. I'm sorry, I will. Okay, it's moved by Councillor Dillabaugh and seconded by Mayor Seo that committee receives and approves the closed session minutes dated August 16th and November 15th, 2021. All in favor? Sorry about that, folks. Little off here. Okay, and we discussed a matter involving an employee of the Public Works Department. So that was a report out, and I'm now looking for an adjournment, and I believe Deputy Mayor Deschamps, you have that.
So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter. My gosh. So that committee does now adjourn at 8:55 p.m. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Oh, yeah, they are. Don't need them now.
All right, for the adjournment, all in favor? Aye, we are adjourned at 8:55.